everybody, it's Adele. So today, we're gonna kind of talk about highly sensitive people, empaths, people who have psychic abilities, and really superpowers, different kinds of superpowers, and everybody has their own different kind of superpowers. So I started watching, it's called Facing Death. It's on Netflix. It's a docu-series. I just watched the first episode last night. I have some notes that I'm going to refer to because it really goes hand in hand with what I'm about to talk about. Also goes hand in hand with the experience that I have also faced. And then I also took notes on a TED Talk. It's called The Gentle Power of Highly Sensitive People by Elena Prediakarov. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but that's those are kind of the resources that I am looking into. I've done a little bit of outside research, plus I've read multiple books, so all of the information we're going to talk about today is really entailing everything that I've been doing, all of my research, a lot of the studies that I've been reading about. So to start, really, we're going to talk about sensitivity and how there are many people, there are hundreds and thousands of people out there. In fact, they say I think 15% of the population are classified under highly sensitive people and individuals who are very sensitive, very emotional. And these people who are sensitive, a lot of the times they're actually very in tune with their emotions. And if they are not in tune with their emotions yet, they will be, and they're still learning how to maneuver around their emotions and work through those emotions. But, we as a society, we often criticize highly sensitive people, or HSPs, as weak, fragile, right? They're too sensitive. They need to get tougher skin. We call them snowflakes, right? And that's wrong because, we were created to be the person that we are. And so if you're a sensitive person, odds are you're a very deeply passionate person as well. And sometimes, a lot of times they also say that a lot of people who are highly sensitive people are, they can be introverts, extroverts, ambiverts. It really doesn't matter what kind of personality you have. What matters is that is the superpower that you have, the ability to feel and to be sensitive. And so that's why when you're dealing with a sensitive person, an HSP, you have to be really careful with the words that you're using. What are you saying to this person? Because you have to understand that this person is so sensitive that they are, that they're so passionate, and they have this ability to be very empathetic and empathize with their surroundings, with the people around them, people that they do know, people that they don't know. And so if you say something to them, they're going to take it straight to the heart because that is the kind of person they are, and there is nothing wrong with that. Highly sensitive people are also people who worry. We've got these worriers. And oftentimes, I like to say worriers are warriors because they have this ability to feel deeply and to be charismatic and compassionate, right? And so we as a society have to stop telling people not to be like this, because when you tell somebody who's highly sensitive and very in tune with their emotions like this, when you tell somebody to stop being like that and to toughen up, that's like telling somebody to stop having blue eyes when they were born with blue eyes. Highly sensitive people are born this way. And so, perks of having this kind of superpower is to have like an overactive mind. People who are able to feel deeply and have this, these thoughts, they overanalyze everything. They look at things from all different perspectives. They're loving, they're accepting, they're very non-judgmental. They don't criticize, And the only reason why a highly sensitive person would be critical of another human being is if they themselves have been criticized. And it just depends on the length of time that they've been criticized or the length of time that they've been hurt. Being an empath is something that you have to recognize. And myself, I didn't realize that I was an empath until, my ex pointed it out to me that I had this superpower to feel. And, I didn't really believe him, or, I knew that I was very sensitive, very emotional, but I guess I just kind of disregarded it for a long time. And then when we went through our breakup and I was feeling emotions that were not mine, like I was feeling guilt and remorse and resentment, and these emotions were not emotions that I felt because I had nothing to be guilty for. And I realized, wow, okay, I, went to counseling, I went and talked to some people, talked to a medium, talked to, psychics, and everyone was saying, okay, this is something that you have to learn how to recognize, because these emotions that you're feeling are not your feelings. And this can actually kill you if you are not careful enough. So, I kept following my intuition, and you know what? Something that falls under intuition are premonitions. And I've actually written this down as well. So you have people who have the ability to feel deeply and also have premonitions through their intuition. And your intuition can also, a lot of people who are spiritual, this is like the Holy Spirit inside of your soul that's telling you to do something. And so a lot of times, highly sensitive people, right, emotional people with high emotional intelligence will follow what their intuition is telling them, because that is the path that they're meant to take. And people are often criticized for this path, right? And so this path, though, is, personally, I believe in God. So this is a path that I believe God is wanting to take me on. And he has showed me this through faith, right? And so I wouldn't have really gone through this whole wave of things if I didn't experience my near-death experience. Because when you are becoming a person that God or the universe or the world or whatever you believe in doesn't want you to be, when you're trying to be somebody that you're not, you're gonna face some serious trials and some serious adversity. And you're gonna go through a lot. And that's exactly what happened to me. Because along the way, I lost myself and I realized, okay, I'm being something that I'm not. But you know what? Let me tell you something. I want to tell you a little story, and this goes in hand with what I'm talking about, because my ex's son, he is also a highly sensitive person. He worries a lot. He's charismatic, so loving, so compassionate. This little boy that I saw, I could see part of myself in him, and I was like, okay, do not change who you are. Little boy, you are so loved because you have a superpower. He loves to read. It's not a coincidence that he wants to know all about history. He wants to learn all these things because he wants the knowledge. And I talk about, your IQ and your EQ. You've got, your IQ is your intelligence quotient, how you learn. Your EQ is your emotional intelligence, how you are able to identify and work through your emotions. And a lot of the times, they say you can't change your IQ, but you can change your EQ. And IQ plus EQ equals knowledge, right? And so, kind of going back to my ex's son, probably a month before a month or so, maybe, I don't know, I don't know the dates exactly, but he was having nightmares, and he was waking up, and he was saying, I have this actually written down. He was saying that he was having nightmares about death, about people being taken away from him, about being alone, like us dying. And you know what? I was having dreams that my ex was going to go back to his ex. I was having dreams about this, and I was like, I would wake up really angry, and I'd be like, hey, it was just a dream. But dreams can be premonitions as well, and that's your intuition, that's your subconscious mind trying to send you a message. And fate and destiny is not something that you can change. If God has a plan for you, and if the universe has a plan for you, you cannot change that. So if you have a dream that is a premonition of something that's going to happen, which happens a lot, this is also fall under lucid dreaming, right? Where you feel like you have control over this, right? Lucid dreaming also falls under dreams with telepathic dreams, telepathy, okay? And Sigmund Freud was the first person to document telepathic dreams. And so I have a telepathic dream dreams that I've experienced that I know for a fact actually happened because they were very real. And they're like, I was talking to my lash artist too, and she was saying, I'm having these dreams that feel like they're real. It feels like I'm living another life. And that's because those dreams can be premonitions. And you can choose to believe them or not. But at the end of the day, if it's destined to happen, you can't change what the dream is going to be. If you're having this intuition that is going to happen, you can only really, what's the word I'm looking for? You can only prepare yourself for what's going to happen. You cannot change what is destined to happen. You can only prepare yourself for what's going to happen. So, my ex's son, he was having dreams, really bad dreams, and then guess what? Within a month or two, what was dissolved? My relationship with this man and his children was dissolved. I didn't get to say goodbye, and I was ripped out of this little boy's life that I was very, very spiritually connected to. And, you know, when you take that out of someone's life, that is loss, that is grief, that is worse than that. You know, when someone's alive and they're ripped out of your life, out of your control, that right there is worse than death, I think. That would be worse than me dying because I'm alive and I can't do anything about it. I can't say anything, I can't do anything, I can't talk to him. You know, I can't see how he's doing. And so that right there was, his dream was coming true. Unfortunately, right? And in a way, it was coming true where this is ripped, right? Within the time that we were apart, I was having dreams of him visiting me. And I kept telling my friends, I'm like, I would wake up sobbing. And I was like, he was talking to me. I know he was talking to me. I was getting ready to let go, and he would, you know, in one of my dreams, I was getting ready to let go and move on, and his son in my dream was holding on to me. And he was begging me, he was saying, please don't leave us. Please don't leave us. I said, like, buddy, it's not in my control. I wouldn't leave if I didn't have to, right? And I was trying to talk to him. I was trying to tell him, like, you know, and it was like, I had 3 of those dreams like that. And it was like so strong. And those are things that you can't make up. And so, you know, and I had dreams that he, you know, my ex was going to leave me, and he did. And, you know, another premonition I had was with my surgery. I told my coworkers, I said, I have a bad feeling that something bad's going to happen. I don't know why. And they were like, just get that out of your mind because what you focus on grows. But yes, but when you have premonitions that are given to you, that's a psychic ability. And when that's given to you, you can't change what's destined to happen. And I said something bad is going to happen. And what happened? I had a seizure. I stopped breathing for over 2 minutes, right? I was watching this video on, you know, Facing Death, the first season, the first episode, and it talks about premonitions, and it talks about how this happens to millions of people, paranormal events. It talks about how your lack of oxygen to your brain, which is exactly what happened to me, you're physically dead. Like, that's brain dead right there. But your there is a greater being beyond our conscious mind and our subconscious mind, and that's exactly where I went. And you have these people who have these premonitions and this ability to have psychic ability, who have experienced this, who say, I was out of body, and that's exactly what I was going through. And people who have experienced this, a lot of the times, they can't really comprehend it right away. It takes a long time to process exactly what happened. You have to, you know, talk to people about it. You have to get some help on it, which I did. I talked to people about it. I did some research on it. I talked to the person who was there experiencing it with me, what I was saying, what she was saying, what we were going through, right? And so it took weeks to process exactly what happened. Well, let me tell you another premonition that I had. In 2019, May of 2019, I had a procedure done, and I had a bad feeling about it. And I told my ex, I don't think that I should do this. I have a bad feeling about it. And he told me, he said, it's gonna be fine, you're gonna be okay, you know, like, we'll get through this together. And I go and I have the procedure done, and, you know, I'm not gonna say details on it because that's my, you know, obviously, it's pretty emotional, but I go and have the procedure done, and later that night, I think it was maybe that night or the next night, I woke up in the middle of the night, and my entire body was shaking. I was in shock, I was freezing, and I couldn't move. And I couldn't get out of my body, I couldn't get out of bed. And my ex, he was laying in bed, and he turned over to me, and he was like, are you crying? And I was like I couldn't even, it was hard to even really talk. I was in shock. I just was in shock. And what ended up happening, we ended up finding out that I went into septic shock that night because this procedure that they did wasn't done correctly, and I got an internal infection. So an hour later, when I got up to go to the bathroom, because I finally was like, hey, something's wrong, you know? When I got up to go to the bathroom, I lost close to a gallon of blood just poured out of my body. And it was really traumatizing. And I didn't go to the hospital. I didn't tell him what was going on because he was sleeping, the kids were sleeping, and I just was trying to be strong, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna put this behind me. And the next day I called, you know, the doctor's back, and I told them what happened, and they were like, you need to come in right now. And I'm like, well, I am watching the kids, and you know, my significant other is in class, and you know, I can't come in right now. I have to take care of the kids, because you know, again, that was me putting the kids before myself, which I'm not upset that I did that, you know, but I did experience this crazy experience, this premonition, and I had the premonition. I knew that this was going to happen. I knew something bad was going to happen. Well, I ended up having to go back to the doctor when he got home from school or his internship, and I went back into the doctor's office, and they told me, they were like, I don't know how you're alive. That was another near-death experience that I had. Like, I went into septic shock. Now, my brain was, I still had oxygen in my brain, so I was still there, right? So this most recent experience was a legit near-death experience where where I stopped breathing, where my brain had lack of oxygen, and I went to a different realm, and that stuff does happen. So, you know, having the premonition about that procedure, and then having the premonition that he was going to leave me again, and then and then his son having these premonitions as well, those are things that you can't ignore. Those are things that you can't just be like, yeah, we're gonna ignore this. Because God works in a way where the brain is functioned to connect dots. And sometimes he'll give you pieces to the puzzle, and you have to be smart enough and intelligent enough to take the pieces of the puzzle that he's giving you and put the pieces together. So, you know, that's where premonitions kind of draws a line, and that's where lucid dreaming comes into play. And that's where I'm saying, like, I had lucid dreams where, like, because lucid dreams, I need to do a little bit more research on this, but lucid dreams, you know, where you have the ability to control. But sometimes, like in lucid dreaming and telepathic dreams, you have the ability to have conversations and communicate with each other. So I do believe that, you know, his son was communicating with me through a dream, and I was trying to tell my ex this. I was trying to tell him, hey, I'm having these really vivid dreams, and because my ex maybe doesn't have dreams like that or premonitions like that, or, you know, experience that kind of like depth, maybe he didn't believe me, you know, because if you don't go through that yourself, it's really hard to believe that, you know. And so with dream telepathy, when it is the ability to communicate telepathically with another person through dreaming. Now, you can choose to believe this or not, but like I said, this was documented by Sigmund Freud, was the first to do this, but it falls under lucid dreaming because that's another psychic ability to, you know, of your subconscious mind, and that deep part of your soul where this can trigger, you know, you can trigger tapping into this, and the first way to do this, like the first way to do this is to be aware, is to first be aware, and then you can tap into it. But sometimes you can't control those things, you know, but just remember that dreams can foreshadow premonitions of the future. And that's why, you know, highly sensitive people who had these dreams remember the dreams. You know, other people who are not as deeply sensitive or deeply emotional, they don't remember the dreams. And so those premonitions kind of go away. Now, if they do have a dream that's pretty vivid that they do remember, they can, you know, the best thing to do is to write it down. But if you wake up and you don't write down your dream, or if you know, it's easy to forget. But you can predict, you know, what may happen. And that's why, you know, looking at key points of dreams, that's why people analyze dreams. You know, flowing water is emotion. And so if you have dreams about water, that's like emotion. So you have to look at the different, you know, things that pop up in your dreams, and then you can do some research on what those things mean, and then you can analyze it from there. So, you know, the next thing I want to talk about, kind of leaping back into highly sensitive people, is that people who are highly sensitive and highly emotional, there is no way to really recognize a fellow HSP, right? There's no like special way of being like, yeah, you're an HSP, right? You don't know it right off the bat. Now, you can follow your intuition and say, okay, like, you know, and get a feel of what you're going through, but you have to get to know somebody. And that's why highly sensitive people are so focused always on connections and encouragement and building relationships. And that's also why they're very criticized, because a lot of the times this connection that they're seeking with other people in the world can be misunderstood and misinterpreted as something different, but it's not. So that's why, I wrote down here, like, we need to kind of diminish the whole societal standard where you have to be a specific way or dress a certain way. Zeppelin! Or where you have to dress a certain way or act a certain way. And it's like, if you have good intentions, if you have a good heart, and if you're following the path that you're supposed to be on, then it doesn't matter, right? If your intentions are pure, then just do you. Just be the person that you're meant to be. And so understand that people who are highly sensitive and deeply emotional and in tune with their emotions like this, they're not delusional. They're not crazy. There's nothing wrong with them. So society needs to stop categorizing people as insane or mentally unstable, right? When at the end of the day, if someone's mentally unstable, you're gonna know, like, they're gonna get the help they need. But people were telling me that I was mentally unstable, and then when I went and talked to psychiatrists and a psychologist, they all told me, no, you're not. You're not, because you're going to counseling, you're doing your research, you're not crazy. These things do happen. And so that's why I've always been so intrigued with psychology and how the brain works and how the mind and the subconscious mind and the conscious mind, how those things work, because that's how your mind is like an organizer. It organizes. It's like a storage, right? It has different files for different things. And so that's why when somebody experiences a near-death experience, like how what I went through, right? Or anybody else, like people who go through these things, when their brain when they go brain dead, they can't organize their thoughts or collect their thoughts anymore. And so it gets scattered everywhere. And the only way to do that is to really get it out on paper, and then you can kind of put the pieces together. And so that's why people are often labeled as delusional after they go through an experience that is so traumatizing and so close to death. When they go, people who go through these kind of things, they can actually physically have spirits. They physically can see their bodies. People who go through these things can hear spirits, right? Nothing like, they can hear them directly or indirectly through prayer, right? For me personally, it was through I wasn't hearing voices or seeing things that weren't there, but it was all through my inner soul and my inner being. And because that's how chakras, when your chakras are all aligned, that's exactly how you can have that spiritual experience. Right? So, again, I'm taking notes, because there's a lot to say, right? So, and like they say, you were born this way. So if you're a highly sensitive person, you were born this way. And if you try and fit the mold and fit into a box other than the way that you were born, you're most likely going to go through trauma that also helps you realign yourself with who you're meant to be. And if you're meant to be an HSP, and if you're meant to be somebody who can feel deeply and have this ability and have this superpower, then you can't, no matter how hard you try and force that away from you, God, in my eyes, right, or the universe, or whatever, the world, whatever you believe in, your higher power is always going to tell you, hey, is always going to redirect you on the path you're meant to be. And let me just say, I did not just go through a near-death experience, build this relationship with God and my higher power to come back and be like, no, this didn't happen. I did not just go through all that I went through just to say, nope, I'm not going to use this second chance as a way to bring people back together. There's no way, right? I went through this experience on purpose because I am a chosen one. I do believe that all of us are chosen people. We're all chosen people, but you need to first find your superpower. And before you can find your superpower, you have to recognize what your superpower is. The only reason why I was able to recognize what my superpower is because the person that I hold near and dear to my heart, he told me what my superpower was. And that resonated with me for a very long time. And every single time I thought that there was something wrong with me with how deeply I feel. Every single time I thought there was something wrong with me, I resorted back to that conversation that he and I had. And I thought to myself, okay, I just need to find a way, an outlet. How do I manage this? How do I learn more about this? Right? How do I utilize my superpower at the highest capacity that I possibly can? And I would not have been able to learn how to do that had I not gone through everything that I went through. So I wouldn't take any of that back, right? So sensitivity overall is classified as a flaw, right? They say people who are highly sensitive are highly flawed. And that is a stereotype that we as society need to put an end to. Because being sensitive and being emotional is not a bad thing. In fact, people who are HSPs can also bring out the best in other people, and they can bring out the soft side and the emotional side in other people that other people are trying to suppress. And we all know that when you suppress your emotions and suppress your feelings, anger is developed from that. So we cannot allow irrational emotions such as anger to come out because we don't want to feel a certain way. You have to allow yourself to feel the things that you're going through in order to grow. And sometimes anger is going to be the first emotion because it's an irrational emotion. So anger will be the first emotion, but anger will be what makes you aware of what's going on. So once you recognize that anger is an emotion that you have in you, that's your first reactive response, then you can dive deeper into that and be like, okay, now I need to take this anger and figure out where the anger stemmed from, where I can then face whatever it was that made me angry. And face those fears is what I call them, right? So it's just like, just like I said before, highly sensitive people who are emotional people, they cannot, no matter how hard they try, they cannot detach themselves from their emotions. And that's why people who suffer from anxiety, depression, all these things, is because society wants them to detach themselves and flip the switch. Some people who are not HSPs, they can flip the switch no problem. But other people who can't just flip the switch, they have to face their emotions. And they're stuck dealing with the emotions. And so we can't expect people, especially highly sensitive people, we can't expect these people to just detach themselves and to flip the switch off. We can't do that because that's not how they're programmed to work. It's that simple. It's just like, I want you to know, not all highly sensitive people are destined or wanting to change the world. Some people who are highly sensitive, they want to be private, and that's perfectly fine. But there are other people who want to go and change the world. There are people like Gandhi, Buddha, right? Leonardo da Vinci, the Dalai Lama, Mother Teresa. These people are all very highly sensitive people, very intelligent people who are very in tune with their emotions, who were on a mission to change the world, and that's exactly what I'm personally doing. Now, not everyone's going to be like that. Another stereotype that people make is highly sensitive people most of the time are women. That's actually not the case. 50% of highly sensitive people are men, are male. And that's why I believe that I connect with, my ex's son, because he is also a highly sensitive person that I can relate to and I can understand. And his son and I, we had very, very, clear conversations about emotions, about feelings. And, he would open up to me, and it was a very, very beautiful thing. And so when he would open up to me, it would make me feel like I had a purpose here because people feel like they can come to me and trust me. And so when he'd open up to me, I would always be loving, supportive, kind, compassionate. Just like if anyone who saw this video were to come to me and say, hey, I could use some advice, or hey, can you just listen? I would say absolutely. Because at the end of the day, you're gonna follow, the best thing to do is to follow your intuition and to follow what your gut is telling you to do, what the Holy Spirit inside of you is telling you to do, and to follow your heart. And so but in order to follow your gut, that chakra has to be aligned with your heart chakra, which has to be aligned with your head chakra. So everything has to be in alignment in order for you to follow the pursuit that you're meant to pursue. So, people who are emotional empaths, right? Empaths, this is the ability to feel. Empathetic people who are empaths. And there are so many different types of empaths, right? And a lot of empaths, can be in a public place for a while or can't be, if they're a lot of people who are very highly sensitive, they can't be in a certain area for too long, because especially when they're aware that they're empathetic and they can absorb emotions and their environment, they can't be in a place for too long because it's overbearing for them. And so I have recently found that about myself, where I'm like, okay, I'm in a public place, and then I'm like, I almost get a headache because I hear all these different things. I'm sensitive to all these different things, which is a beautiful, beautiful gift to have. But you have to utilize that gift in a way that is healthy for you personally. I can be around people because I'm a very extroverted person. I love listening to people. I love helping people. I love talking to people. But there does come a time where I'm like, okay, I need to recharge. And so recharging can be through different means, For me, it's writing or listening to music or singing. I love singing because that's like a way that I recharge. And so you have to find what your superpower is and what helps you recharge, And this is, the last thing that I wrote down here, is this is why acceptance is important. This is exactly what I talk about, right? And so let me just say, for example, right? And this is my belief, and this through this entire experience has made me realize that acceptance, love, faith, hope, and grace, those are the things that are going to unite all of us globally. And we are all in the middle of a global pandemic. And the reason for that, right? We talk about this conjunction that happened where the planets aligned, created the Star of Bethlehem. Do you know how many people were reborn? I was one. But there are hundreds of people out there who have gone through a very similar experience, who have been reborn, because this is a new era to bring people together and to unite each other. COVID was predicted. Sylvia Brown, in a book called End of Days, she predicted that COVID was going to happen and that it was going to be exactly what it is and come out of Wuhan. It was predicted years ago. And the saying said, this psychic, she said, because she had this premonition, right? This is why premonitions are real. She said this disease would leave as quickly as it came. And my belief, and you can choose to believe whatever you want, my belief, the reason why COVID has come is because people, and the reason why all these things have happened to so many people is because of fear. And fear is the devil. And if you don't believe in the devil, what's written in the devil is evil. Fear is evil. And so we have to instead love each other, accept each other, and understand that there is hope, faith, grace, and happiness. And God is love, and your higher power is love, and the universe is love, and manifestations is love, as long as your intentions are pure and good. But I do believe in God. And I'm not forcing God down anyone's throat. But the stars, the planets aligning created the Star of Bethlehem, which is when Jesus was born. And the Star of Bethlehem realigning now, whether you want to believe in God or not is up to you, but the stars aligning did create the Star of Bethlehem again. Many people have been reborn, and the stars aligning was for a new era of fear and love. Fear, evil, devil, love, COVID, universe, manifestations, positivity. So you have to decide what you're going to choose. And you can choose to believe if the cure to COVID is not love. If you believe that the cure to COVID is a vaccine, then so be it. I accept your belief. If you believe that cure to COVID is love and faith and God, so be it. I believe you. I accept your opinion. Because we are all created to be imperfect, right? God was created to be perfect, and his belief is through him, all things are possible, right? And so you have to, and if you don't believe in God, then believe in the universe. But I believe in God, and that's my belief. And that's why we can't sit here and say, well, I'm not going to listen to what she has to say because she believes in God and I don't believe in God. That's not right to say either, right? Because if you're believing in manifestation and the universe and the stars and astrology, right, then you should be able to accept someone else's belief. And if you're going to sit here and say, well, I don't want to hear anything about what you have to say about God, then you have to ask yourself, then are you worthy of expressing what you have to say if you're not willing to listen to the other side either, right? That's where we have to accept each other's opinions and respect each other and not try and force what we believe down someone's throat and just understand that, hey, they're gonna have their beliefs and that's perfectly fine. I have my beliefs and that's perfectly fine. And together, with our beliefs together, even though they're different, we are on the same mission to unite each other globally. And that's the important message through all of this. That's what's important. So I hope that if you've listened to this, that you can take this away positive, like in a positive way. And you can say, okay, yeah, she's making some points that are absolutely right. You know, I have so much research, so many books that I'm reading, so many things that I've put together where I'm like, okay, align. This is all lining up. And so if we want the world to come out of lockdown, and if we want things to change, instead of saying it's one way or the other way, politics, for example, politics have divided the entire world. Instead of saying, well, he's a bad person or she's a bad person, blah, 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 like, instead of saying those things, turn to each other, those who are around you instead, and say, hey, we are here for the people. Because together, we can and we will change the world. You just have to believe it. So I pray that this message comes to you with happiness, love, and light. And I pray that you yourself are happy, have a loving day, you have a beautiful day, and that you truly stay blessed in whatever you believe in. Because the universe, and this year is the year of the white metal ox. I was born the year of an ox. And this year is the year of the white metal ox, and I was also reborn on December 1st of 2020. And that's where I made a video. It's called, my walk with death and my spiritual awakening, right? The great spiritual awakening of 2020. I am not the only one who has gone through this. So we need to make this known, make this put in the history books. How many people had spiritual awakenings? So many people. And this is our time to change. This is a new era, and we need to change it. So let's do it together. Have a blessed day. And I love you guys all. Bye.